Yeah, so just a quick introduction. Tony reached out to me on leading this talk, and I've been really excited to hear about it. And I think it'll be super helpful to those interested in heading into a sales sort of discipline, and also learning about like his best practices and his career experiences will definitely help in people that are looking into sales. There are also other disciplines as well. So Tony, thank you so much. And with that being said, looking forward to this presentation and also learning a bit about more about your career. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, James. Good to be here. This is kind of like when you get on a flight and the flight attendant says, if you're headed for Tampa, you're on the right flight. In this case, if you're headed for a sales career, this would be a bit of an excursion to explore that. Maybe you've thought about if you are cut out. Maybe people have told you in your life, friends, family have said, you know what, you would be excellent as outbound, let's say even alliance manager, seller, business development, anything where you are connecting the interests of one company to the needs of another. I'll go through some things that are the fundamentals of not only the traits and skills you need to build up to be great at it, but what employers are looking for in finding new sales talent and putting them into what is a pretty defined sales career path. And I'll talk through that. So you can all see the kind of brief agenda I've put together. It's for someone that is very serious about it and wants to fine tune their plan, but this talk would also be for someone who's saying, I never really thought about it. And I have a certain perception that maybe I need to revisit because there's definitely some stigma attached to being in sales. So next slide. There we go. I'm gonna go escape. It should be going on spacebar. Excuse me. One second. Here we are. We're advancing down here. Excuse me. So the background on me is I've been outbound sales in the magazine industry, in the media space. That took me to Google to try and help companies understand how digital marketing and search in specifics were changing how they did outbound paid media. That also took me to work at companies like Microsoft and eBay, where I was running sales teams and helping build out a practice whereby we brought products to market, we captured certain customer types, and worked very, very closely with product development on a lot of innovative new solutions that needed to be tested out in the market, which I would just start this whole talk by saying, if you like innovation and you like driving adoption of new technology, then sales alliances are the engine for that. And I'll get into that later, but any VC that's funding a new company would say the first business objective is a set of 100% referenceable new clients that have tried the technology. Well, if you're part of that team, you basically are in the core of the launch of the company. So that's pretty exciting. And if that gets your appetite going, that's what I'll talk about. I now am with a very fast moving company, happens to be called Fastly. We're in the IT networking space. We basically help deploy, manage, and keep safe web operations for commerce companies, media companies, and some platform companies like Adobe and others, basically keeping the web operation running and secure worldwide. I've put about 43 people into our sales group in the last year, and we have grown by 210 people in the last year. So this is a quick one. We all love Michael Scott for what he is. He is just the epitome of the worst type of seller you would ever run into. Absolutely self-centered, zero empathy, and probably not the most studied or astute seller out in the market. And then you have a Dr. Fauci who is reliable, credible, absolutely has the best interest of his end client in mind. In that case, it's the healthy American public. This quote in particular, you might know sellers and you've seen them in movies that just want to talk until you are so worn down you're going to buy something from them. This is my favorite Michael Scott quote. You all have your own favorite quotes. So what is it about being a seller that is natural to you, and that we're sellers, by the time they're 10, 12 years old, they're already starting to exhibit some of the key traits they need to have to be great at working with people, helping them establish trust, and then take on something daring or something creative or something that is a new investment. They have to be confident that this is going to work. It takes a human to human contact to make that type of investment or new strategy kick in. The two traits that come up again and again as I'm screening for sales talent is, I'll start with authentic curiosity. People who are fascinated by business, with the way things work, that want to ask questions about business related facts or anything. Basically, they are tenacious about why something is happening. And in asking questions, people naturally tell them what the heck's going on. You may have friends like this that always have the idea of where to go tonight, where the new restaurant has opened, why go to Bali versus Tahiti, what have you. They're basically always resourceful, looking for new things. The personal responsibility trait that is very important in sales is the type of person that goes to bed at night saying, in this job, I could do more. There's creative ways I could do more. There's another type that goes to bed at night that says, it's really unfair the way they're making me do more than I was told I would have to do. That is what I boil down to personal responsibility. You are either about achieving more with the current resources, or you're about questioning whether you've been given the right resources. And the second group doesn't belong in sales. I've had sales managers and mentors of mine that say, if they don't bite as puppies, they're not going to bite as dogs. Meaning you have to show that grit and tenacity and focus right from college age or just out of school. You're not going to suddenly be a outgoing, tenacious person or contagiously curious. You're not suddenly going to build that up as an adult. They also would say, when I'm around a great seller, I feel like I'm in their way. I feel like they have to go to the bathroom. They have an agenda. They're moving forward all the time. And even when the big boss is in town going to do meetings with them, it is the seller's agenda that is preeminent. It's like, this is what we're going to go do today. That's the quality of someone that has a big sense of urgency and knows what they're doing in sales. I've listed other things like emotional intelligence, the ability to tell a story and be engaging. It's really about empathy, and it's also about understanding that you need to establish trust to then be able to give advice. So that's probably something that goes along in your normal life. You happen to tap into it in a sales career. What we look for in resumes, and this is really important, people that have played sports for many years and have achieved and been kind of promoted up into levels of sports through high performance shows the same tenacity it takes to become great in business and specifically in sales. Because daily improvement, daily goal setting, setting personal best, pushing yourself beyond comfort zone is required in both. It could be violin, it could be martial arts or free climbing, El Capitan. Any of these accomplishments I look at as requiring the same hard work, daily focus that it takes to be great in sales. I also love to see a mix of outside work, teaching English as a second language, building homes for Habitat for Humanity. This is basically a well-rounded person, but also someone that is in touch with not just personal reward. So I hope that makes sense. So why go into sales? It's risky, and people hear about, oh, the sales team was just cut at Oracle because of the TikTok acquisition. Making that up, but let's say there's times when it is not the best job in perception. When it is a great job is when you know you're good at it, you display that through achievement, and now you have actually a lot of job security, because once you've shown great sales success, Many different companies and industries want to bring you on. You have geographic flexibility with where you'd like to work. You can be pulled into new joint ventures and new interesting tech rollouts, or many different industries pull great salespeople in to be on the ground floor of new operations. You obviously are promising that you can sell X amount. The business forecasts what you can sell. When you sell well above that, you're rewarded incrementally. There's years when you could make more than the top management at the company because you absolutely crush your goals. The other thing that people don't know about sales is a good sales organization will not only ramp you up and do a great comprehensive training about their product and operations, but they will pay for your advanced education. I had 3 companies pay for my MBA that took me 7 years at night while I was raising little kids. So it is possible to have your MBA covered while you're in sales, because all of those courses, in my case, were relevant to my job. Not so much if you're in, I'll just say, HR operations or something. It is a natural stepping stone to go into some career paths. I'll describe those in a minute. And it really, at times, the big reward is you've created something that businesses adopt or consumers adopt that is a game changer as far as utility, business process, and it through that adoption, it actually may create jobs and drive entire new parts of the industry. And you've become a trusted advisor to business contacts while you're selling, and they remain contacts for your life because you've done some very interesting, groundbreaking work together. I'm touching on this slide briefly because soft skills, things around describing, communicating, collaborating, these are things that are either natural to you or built up and perfected while you're in sales. They will serve you across your whole life, but they are the most important traits that are looked for in upper executives or founders of companies. So we've all heard about founders. Let's just talk about Uber for a second. If the founders have command of themselves and they are highly ethical and they are presenting continuously across the entire org and externally, you have a stable company. If those things don't exist, you have an unstable company. What are you working with in sales? What does it take to be a high achiever in, I'll just say, enterprise sales, the highest level of business to business sales? You're working with CRM software. You're using a lot of tools to uncover who's buying, who has budget authority, what have they already purchased, how are they organized. All of this is available through tools. You can also look into the actual architecture of their business through online tools. There's also a lot of business intelligence analytics that actually allow you to forecast and understand the total market you're going after. And then when you're actually pursuing business in the market using tools like Zoom, DocuSign, there's a lot of account-based marketing through platforms like Gem and Eloqua and Outreach, where you're doing sequential marketing campaigns, usually in email, but other platforms as well, to isolate the interest and the inbound purchasing signals from a wide set of customers, and obviously working down the funnel with all of these tools to deal more and more often with customers who are likely to buy. So what do people do in sales that are high performers? They tend to pick a sector, whether it's machine learning, CAT scan, machine technology, I don't know, clean tech. They develop an expertise and a point of view, and they become the internal, external expert that tends to take them deeper into their sales career, and actually, basically deeper into sales organizations or actually the buying organization on the client side. They're seen as an external expert. They work their mentor relationships. They find out what it takes to look around the corner and get to that next job, because people are giving them the tips of how they got there. They run a professional narrative across all of their social feeds. They have a consistent point of view and are not frivolous with the way they're putting content out there. There is actually a plan around driving towards their interests, covering the things they believe in. Let's say it's the future of clean tech. And their followers actually follow them from job to job over time because they do have a consistent expertise and point of view on these platforms. They go to trade shows and conferences with a plan, and they meet with people, and they basically just prosecute every single opportunity that comes to them, including trade conferences. That's about that. So you get into a sales career, you're hired, you get the first role, you're headed into a sales training program. The first role is usually around sales development. These are the people that produce leads, and they quantify and qualify companies that should work with the company by collecting information that comes in through inbound information like lead forms, through some of the tools we talked about like Zoom Info and others, where they can look up required information about these companies. And then they are behind chat software like Drift and others that pop up on business to business sites when people are looking at the product and are naturally looking to have questions answered. So after inbound work, which is dealing with companies asking questions to you, you start working as an outbound SDR. After about a year, in our company, that's the timing. You start scheduling demos, you start doing cold emails and reaching companies that pattern match with active customers. So there's a prospecting qualification list that takes you through dozens of companies that need to hear from your company, and you're in charge of making that outbound connection. You get promoted and make more money when you are qualifying, getting information, and then turning over leads that sales assigns to a field seller. That is the finish line with this role, producing a qualified lead. So you made it through that, you got promoted, you're now an account executive. You have assigned accounts. You have also greenfield accounts that you need to go close. They've never worked with the company. They are not necessarily produced by leads from your SDR, but by your work, hunting, speaking to people in the field. You're closing deals. You are working with typically a sales engineer or somebody that helps you with the technical qualification. And then you also are working with people like finance and marketing to refine not only what goes in the contract, but what you can say about the particular product. So you've decided that you're a senior account executive, you've gone far enough, you really are interested in some of the adjacent departments that are supporting you, and you want to move your career up into those departments. You can go and lead a customer success team. You could go into marketing and decide the features, benefits, and how the voice of the customer out in the field gets into product planning to really focus the product roadmap. Or you, that's on marketing. Or on product management, you actually build out the next set of features, geographic, and kind of new adjacent industries that your company's going to go into. So what else could you do after you've crushed it in sales? You can run a sales team and just keep doing what you're doing, but deploy and intelligently map where customers need to be served. Move people into new geos, which I put up here, which is international, leading teams that do what you did in America, but go do them in Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, etc. You can go into marketing leadership, product leadership. Ops leadership would be G&A and could be even facilities management, all of the things that go around running the operation side of the business. Or an important step may be working with the channel team that's helping do reseller agreements, joint ventures. You may have technology partnerships that are more of a biz dev side of the organization. These are all open to you once you've kind of surmounted that sales job. So you're getting ready to go into sales. You're thinking about it. You're retooling to get ready personally and then professionally. What's your outward stance to get ready for a sales job? Look at your resume as an infographic and it's an incomplete sentence here, but basically you need to fit your resume to the particular job that you are pursuing. So you may have 5 versions of your resume. One is for SDR, one is for a customer support role you're exploring, etc. And you might have a big company version of your resume and a feisty startup version of your resume. And it will make sense once you start talking to people in those companies that the things you emphasize in your resume would be germane to that company, what they care about. So I highly encourage you to customize your resume for categoric jobs that you're going after. There's a scoring system you could build in Excel. My friends do this. I've done this before. You have your criteria down the x-axis, and the y-axis, you've got the companies you're talking to, and just map in the results as you go. Company size, commute distance, training program available, compensation, all the things that might be on your top list. Once you're interviewing with 10 companies, it becomes a big matrix. It's much easier visually to see why you're deciding to pursue one versus another when you start ranking the number of your objectives that each job accomplishes. To get started, do unpaid internships or paid projects or boot camps or things that actually showcase that you're meant to be in that field, just haven't been given a full-time job yet. I would look at the resumes of people that are in that company or that position and see some of the activities they were doing as they got out of school. A lot of times with diversity and inclusion, there can be initiatives like Girls Who Code, Afrotech, a number of other organizations that are helping cross-train underrepresented groups. I would go for every type of activation by groups like that. Network constantly, set weekly goals for the number of calls you're going to make outwardly, how many informational interviews, offer to take someone out for a sandwich post-COVID that is in the field that you want to be in. Even if they're a loose connection to someone you went to school with, just put yourself out there. It's a numbers game. You just need to always, each week, have 5 or 6 key conversations you're starting or more. So to my point about your resume being an infographic, I get hundreds of resumes. Some have really interesting information and graphics. I particularly like how Gabriel spends the day in his life, his key strengths. There's a way to come up with these headings. This is built on a platform called Enhanced CV. My daughter used this. She got a job in the medical field because she could showcase her past clinical and medical work that she did. So have a look at some of the new resume formats. Sometimes good to have a picture of yourself there. It's very much more personal. It stands out. But make it real, make it condensed and concise, but use some of these new headings, especially when it comes to your mission. Why do you want a role? Make it easy for people to forward your resume along by giving them a couple of bullet points about what you want to do succinctly, why you want to work at Salesforce, Adobe, DocuSign. Make it simple for them to send that along in Slack or something internally and attach your resume. So when we hire people at Fastly, we're constantly adding to our sales team. There's about 250 of our 800 people are customer facing across about 10 jobs. Some are pre-sales, some are post-sales support. Mission control is technical support. There's a lot of technical and training jobs that happen after the client has been closed, but they're all within the revenue organization. So when I'm hiring for front-end, early stage sellers, we're looking for hustle, exhibiting resourcefulness, past creativity shown. I define creativity by connecting unrelated things. People don't see that, but you see that. Example, I worked with someone that was selling into advertising agencies. She learned that the advertising agencies use a certain memo format when they ask their client for more money, incremental money to buy something. She copied that format, mimicked it, So all her buyer had to do was cut and paste her proposal and put it right into their internal format, and they could instantly add, in this case, Men's Health Magazine to a media plan. That's creativity. You need to have managed a territory. You have to have strategic deal management to be on our team, showing that you've taken a deal that was complicated and you parsed out work and project managed what was going to happen to go sell or grow that account across multiple stakeholders or multiple joint sellers with you. That's strategic deal management. They have to be technically smart, but not overly technical. They have to be able to translate technology into business impact, technology into business process change. Because sometimes technology is just a step change in how data is used or how customer connects or what have you. You have to have someone that can translate technology into things that the business cares about. Proactivity, sense of urgency. The term influence is really just, do you have the trust built up over time, bringing accurate information from the market, coming through with what you say you'll do? Over time, that drives more and more influence. There's a term that people have for pesky sellers that are asking for the world and changing the product as they go because the customer is asking for it. They call it feeding the beast. The beast is the market. Every now and then a seller comes in and just needs something unreasonable very fast. Don't be that type of seller. The influence is because you've sold what the company can do and you've taken the customers on a path to grow with the company versus overpromising, under-delivering in the market. That's influence. Time management is key. Work on that. Be able to tell people in the interview process that you manage your time very judiciously. This is key in sales. Internal systems acumen. The last thing I'll say is you've got business impact for your customers. Number one thing you do in sales. You have the tools and process every day that kind of makes a bill become a law internally. How do you get a deal through? And then separately, you have a comp plan that spells out how you get paid if you overperform. Sales pros need to know all three of those, but the most important thing they need to know is making business impact and profitable investments happen for their companies that they work with directly. So that, James, is the end of my slides. Not sure how I'm doing on time, but that kind of leaves us open for our questions, if there are any.
Yeah, we already have a few in the door. Tony, thanks so much.
Sure.
I'll start with a question from Iris, which are, what types of questions may be asked during a sales internship and how should I prepare for it?
Excellent. So internships are so key. I think it's really across the board what the internship is asking you to do. I think it's important that when you're looking at those internship applications that you find out what is the day in the life of an intern, how is the role measured, how does it report in? Is there an internship manager or does it report into the actual line of business? So it's really hard to say what you'll be asked, but I would guess that as you're going through the interview process, they're going to look for someone that has been ambitious and has taken on training in the past, even if it was working at Nordstrom or, starting a guitar lesson business outside of college. These are all things that show your ambition and your ability to stay organized. But I'm not clear on the type of questions you'd be asked other than what is specifically laid out in the internship job description. If you can talk to someone that's already in the internship or went through it, really important to find out how they've performed. How did they get up to speed in the job? And I think that might tee up the type of questions that you'd want to prepare for.
Awesome, that's helpful. Question asking, what career advice would you give yourself if you could go back and speak to the college age you?
Wow. So the main thing that I think I missed in my first 5 years in school was getting into a very effective training program. So there are training programs that you find out about after you're in your career. I was in the magazine industry for 2 or 3 years before I found out that if I went and joined Rodale, who publishes Men's Health and Runner's World and others, that I could trigger this internal training program. Well, I missed doing that first. So I think the main advice I would give myself is take time for a formal training program in the first 3 years in my career, instead of jumping into that kind of after year 3.
Sure. Makes sense. Another question from Iris. Do you have a methodology of improving one's soft skills?
Wow, yes. Well, when we do trainings to get people better in sales, it's a combination of product knowledge and just being comfortable with the information you need to take to market, because the higher your comfort level, the more you'll be using your natural personality, your natural, compelling skills. So first is get to know the information you need to take to your job, and then practice through role playing or practice public speaking by actually doing it. There's no theory of public speaking, there is just practice. And you just learn over time, possibly even watching yourself on tape, to be more natural, to be more in the moment, to listen more intently, and to just slow down and breathe. But across all the other soft skills like emotional intelligence, I think it is voracious reading, just reading books about what it takes to be in touch with yourself, mindful, but also culturally traveling and understanding that not everyone that you deal with has the same approach or psychology about business. So there is a empathy that you build up by just being aware of people and social situations. So I'd say work on that.
That's good advice. And question from Jennifer: what is a good balance between how many soft skills we put on a resume and how many hard skills we include?
I'd say the balance is that you publish your resume, you put in what you know is very concise information, usually starting with a verb like managed, sourced, developed, generated. If you can't put a verb like that up in front of a sentence, then the accomplishment you're talking about is possibly too wordy. So I'm saying the first thing is in portraying what you can do, be very concise and talk about assignment and achieve results, assignment and overachieving. The soft skills you exhibit in your resume or in your presentation of your resume is just being clear and concise in your writing. And I think I should have mentioned it earlier, but being an excellent writer is very, very key in sales and many careers. But I would say that your soft skills are going to be on display through your eloquence, your word choice in your resume itself, and then obviously any interaction you have around your resume. So it's really hard to say what that balance is, but if you showed your resume to 20 people in business and told them to tell you honestly if it's too wordy or boastful or what have you, I think the best way to test your resume is to show it to people and have them give you unfiltered advice. Don't just trust you've done it well and send it out. Send it to people who will tell you warts and all what may be wrong with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely. It's good to get a lot of different eyes on that, I think. A question from, let me see, anonymous question here. Is there any technical information necessary to know in order to be prepared for an entry-level sales job?
I would say no. It doesn't. If we're going to hire someone right out of school to be our market development representative at Fastly, they're going to be working for a highly technical team. and we will put them through an 8-week boot camp internally. They will know all the terminology and all the use cases for our products. They'll also be trained on all of the industry vertical playbooks. Why does Fastly work in energy versus travel tourism versus IoT? What you need to show is technical curiosity and technical acumen. And I still have technical people interview people that are right out of school that have never had to study up on any technology, and they can still tell if they're a fast study. And the questions they ask about what the technology does shows that they've been paying attention, that it's important to them. So I would say, no, you don't need to know the actual technical terminology, but you have to have a defined interest in tech. A point of view about tech. Why do you like it? Why are you interviewing with the company? Many people fall down in their first interview because they can't answer, what is it about Fastly that's interesting to you? The analog to that is, if you're calling a company in a sales capacity and you can't tell them why you think you can help them, they'll know you're not doing your homework and you're not curious. So I'd say, at the bare minimum, understand why you're interested in that company's technology.
Yeah, come prepared, right? That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Jennifer is wondering if you could give one piece of advice for someone looking for a sales job but doesn't have a lot of experience in that area. What would that one piece of advice be?
I would say the one piece of advice is speak to people who are at the 1-year mark in that particular sector. Let's say someone that's been at DocuSign for a year and you're interested in working for that kind of business process software platform. If you speak to them and they've been in the job for a year, they're going to tell you how they got interviews, what was the most interesting part of the work. But I think it'll kind of unveil for you whether you want to be there or not. And some of the tactics they did around getting people to reference them in, to get advice about how important is the recruiter versus the hiring manager. The best advice I would give you is to speak to someone that's been there about a year that can, with fresh eyes, look back at what they just went through. Cultivate those people. They're going to give you the best read on what it takes to get to that particular job.
Awesome. Thank you. Question. Let me pull this up. I just had my eyes on it. Can you elaborate more on creating a professional narrative and what are the elements that make a solid one?
That's great. Yeah, my friend is the chief narrative officer at a big PR firm that helps companies do their narrative. And it's not that different when you talk about Nike or Apple having a particular constant theme about utility and what they believe in. Your personal narrative is what people say about you when they've experienced your resume and your tweets and your, let's just say, just your LinkedIn business content that you're putting out, the things you follow, the articles you read, what's evident that you're interested in. So you can control what you put out there. You might ask yourself, what if someone saw my last 5 posts across these professional platforms, what would they take away as my kind of interest and point of view? I would say the best thing to do is sit down and plan it out and say, over the next year, what would be the right cadence and the right type of information I should put out? Should I say that I've read this certain book each month? Should I say that I've attended this conference? Should I follow certain decision makers? In my Twitter feed, it took me about, I'm going to say 10 hours of work to follow I probably follow 300 people, but that content feed that I get from those 300 is very important to me. And it's a very refined look at my industry. So it really helps with my feed to have that information coming to me on the front end. So you might do the same thing. Think about whether you want to follow Bill Gates or Dr. Fauci or someone that is 3 years ahead of you in that career path to keep you tuned into what's important. And other than that, I would just look over the fence at people that do it really well, that are friends and family, and say, wow, how are you getting this content? I have a friend that I worked with at Google that's now at LinkedIn that walks to work. Henry Price, you might look him up. He walks to work and does a podcast as he's walking 1 day a week. And it's just of some sort. And you basically walk to work with Henry, and he's chosen to do that in his LinkedIn feed. Very effective. So it's not one size fits all, but my best advice is talk to someone that is doing it well and ask them how they got there.
No, I think that's really, really helpful advice. I think I previously hadn't really thought of curating sort of my like professional LinkedIn or Twitter feed, but I think that actually does say a lot about a person, just like the first couple scrolls through if you're viewing someone's profile for the first time. So that's definitely
Right.
advice that I'm taking to my own sort of personal or professional portfolio and LinkedIn, Twitter, and that. So thank you. That's
Of
actually
course.
fantastic advice. And I have a question more personally to you from Iris, which is why did you leave Google and Microsoft?
Mm. So in the case of Microsoft, my next job was to move to Redmond, Washington, and I was running the Microsoft MSN district here in San Francisco, and it basically was competing with Yahoo and others. And I had achieved everything I could achieve in that role, and my next career step had to be moving to Washington. And I had a wife working in media. We had 2 little kids, so that wasn't going to happen. I took the role at Google because career advancement could happen with Google headquartered here in the Bay Area. I left Google for a couple of reasons. We reorged 8 times in 2007 while I was there. In the same year, we basically were building out the vertical pods within Google's direct sales organization. My wife got sick. She came out of it. She's fine now. But I needed to be at home and not commute what ended up being an hour and a half each way to Mountain View. This is before Google had the buses running all over the Bay Area. And before buying DoubleClick, a company that had San Francisco offices, where there was no San Francisco Google office in 2007, by the way. But the main reason to leave Google was the health of my family and not being able to commute. And I regret it somewhat, but I ended up working with a lot of ex-Googlers on startups in the next year, so it worked out fine.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. I think a couple more questions, and one is, what are traits that have made sales candidates quickly stand out to you?
I would say it's taking on big challenges. If something comes up where the question is, who wants to go to Spain and figure out whether we should work with this company? The first thing you should say is yes, and then ask, for how it's going to work later. So volunteering and being willing to creatively take on more is just a behavior that everyone looks for. It's not qualifying up front, like what would you have me doing? It's just always being ready to be the first in line to go do something. And lastly, I think it's also collaborating internally. I look at people that ask for help internally, but the first thing they do is sit down and go, what are you working on today? Can you help me with this? They have empathy, and they're actually trying to figure out whether that person has the bandwidth to help them. That's from upbringing. That's just natural politeness, but it is very noticed in the early stage of sales careers.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I think I have 2 more questions here, and the first one is, what was your biggest challenge first year post graduation in the workforce?
You know what? It was listening rather than talking. I thought I needed to be the smartest person in the room and always kind of display that. And what I found out from the mentors I built up inside of the company were sometimes better to just wait till the end of the meeting and take someone aside and ask the question you have. So being patient and listening more than talking was probably my biggest lesson in my first job.
I think that's very valid advice to hear. I think it's always important to sort of read the room and listen. So yeah, definitely. Final question here that I have is a little more technical. How does a sales company keep track of how many products you sell personally, / how you are selling these products?
Mm-hmm. It used to be more difficult, but now it's really about the CRM system. Salesforce seems to be pretty pervasive, but when you're going through the qualification of a new deal, the seller would have to not only put in the aggregate kind of what's the estimated contract value, but you actually have to attach the amount of forecasted spend for each product. So there might be technical pro services to launch, and that's a third of the budget. And then there's actual usage of the platform. We have a usage model for the data you put through the Fastly platform, runs a meter, if you will. And then you might have another cost of licensing some software. Well, because you've identified those as product line items, it's very easy for someone on the back end in finance to look at the estimated product sales going forward, because of the accurate forecasting going into the deal approval. And then obviously as deals are closing and they're near, let's say 95% close, you can start actually projecting revenue. So it really is bookkeeping within the CRM system.
Awesome. And then I got one more question for you.
Sure.
Which is, should I join Google or another company in sales when I graduate?
So I would only say you have a choice, and it's very personal. And some people love big companies and they belong at big companies because they love an institution behind them and great services and just an established brand that opens doors wherever you go. You sit next to someone on a plane and you say you work for Google and they light up. Other people want to be moving the needle, big change in the company valuation because you're part of a team of 50 versus 30,000. So I don't have an answer of which one's for you, but there's risk and reward with going to a big company. You can get lost, you can get kind of off to the side and not seeing your way clear to your next job in a big company, but it's more stable. Obviously, if you think by talking to people who have been at small companies or mid-sized companies, ask them what it was like. If that appeals to you, it's a personal choice, but there's no right or wrong with that. It's absolutely what fits this stage of your career.
Gotcha. Well, Tony, thank you so much. I know reading through the Dory that our students really appreciated your perspective and hearing from you. So I think I speak for all the Xoogler School students and the staff. Thank you so much for speaking to everyone today. And yeah, I would say to you out in California, I hope that the air quality keeps getting better. And
we're okay now. We can see 3 blocks down the road from here. So that's a huge improvement. But everyone out there, stay safe. I hope you all do very, very well in your career moves, and I've enjoyed it.
All right, Tony, thanks so much. And a quick reminder to the Xoogler School students here, a reminder to go to the section this afternoon, your sections this afternoon, and we have the Brandon Middleton pitching yourself virtually. Yeah. Tony, thanks so much, and go
James,
49ers.
of course. Yes, go Niners.